The Still Hunter build is back and better than ever in Renegades and is without a doubt one of the most fun and the most powerful builds that you can use this expansion. But before I tell you all about the build, I want to tell you about two emblem giveaways we're going to be doing with this build video. The first of which is going to be going to a random lucky viewer who likes the video, is subscribed to the channel, and leaves a comment down below letting me know what they want to see in the next build video. The other emblem is a very rare one called Back to Basics, which is going to be hidden somewhere in the video. The code will be on screen somewhere in the video. Keep your eyes peeled. First one to find it, it's all yours. For this build specifically, as I said, it is the Still Hunter build, which means we are using the Still Hunt sniper rifle, which has found its way return to form specifically for the Hunter class when you synergize it with Golden Gun. For those who are unaware of how the sniper rifle works, it comes with the Cade's Retribution intrinsic trait, where when you pick up orbs of power or land precision hits to charge this weapon super bar, you can hold alternate fire to fire Golden Gun shots. Specifically need either 12 orbs of power scavenged or to land 6 precision hits, or any combination of the two. Every 2 orbs of power is basically going to count for 1 precision hit. Once you fill up the meter, alternate fire, Golden Gun mode. And you can actually pair this up with 2 different exotic armor options for this build, depending on whether or not you want to lean more into boss damage or lean more into your neutral game ad clearing. The first exotic option is going to be one that absolutely everyone has access to, and that is of course going to be Celestial Nighthawk. Don't let the exotic ornament fool you. This is not indeed Blight Ranger despite the ornament, but with Universal Exotic Ornament Transmog, you can now make the fashion look a lot better. Celestial Nighthawk, everyone knows what it does. Turns your Golden Gun into a one-shot masterpiece and turns the Still Hunt super shot into a one-shot masterpiece. But another additional thing that Celestial Nighthawk does that some people might not know about is this first line right here, where precision final blows reduce the cooldown of your super. So while you're wearing Celestial Nighthawk, you're going to have higher super uptime, assuming that you are indeed landing precision final blows. It's also worth noting that part of the reason this build is back to form is because we have recently received a lot of buffs to Golden Gun, Celestial Nighthawk, and Still Hunt. Looking right here at the patch notes, we see that with the Golden Gun super, it has had its damage increase against non-boss combatants by 15%, its damage against boss combatants by 26%, its projectiles now scorch targets, and when fired inside of a Well of Radiance, Golden Gun now counts as radiant for increased damage. Furthermore, if we come down here to the Still Hunt patch notes, they have buffed Still Hunt's Golden Gun damage while using Celestial Nighthawk by 40%. And they have allowed Sniper's Meditation to buff Still Hunt's Golden Gun shots, and that is specifically referring to one of the artifact perks, which I've unfortunately not gotten to unlock yet, but once we do get there, this thing's going to shred raid bosses, shred dungeon bosses. Sniper's Meditation, sniper rifle hits grant stacking sniper rifle damage, which is just basically going to take your Golden Gun, Celestial Nighthawk, Still Hunt super shots up to 11. Alternatively, if you would like to have a different exotic armor piece on for the more neutral game, more ad clearing, more survivability, when you're not really dealing with bosses, you can go with an exotic armor piece down here, the Relativism, specifically with a combo of Inmost Light and Verity. Or alternatively, if you don't have this specific combo, really any exotic class item with Spirit of Verity is going to do just fine. Now you might be wondering, why do we care so much about Spirit of Verity? Because Spirit of Verity is going to increase our grenade damage. And the reason for that is because the other part of this build that is absolutely fantastic that has recently gotten buffed is Gunpowder Gamble. How specifically was Gunpowder Gamble buffed, you might ask yourself? We see right here with the Gunpowder Gamble aspect, shooting the dynamite to detonate it now increases damage by 50%, expands the radius, and creates sub-munitions. Basically what those sub-munitions means is after the initial explosion, it'll have like these raining bolts of fire that will go and track to enemies and deal a bunch of additional damage. It's absolutely spectacular. Oh, what's that? You were curious what browser this is that we're viewing these patch notes in, because it clearly doesn't look like Google Chrome. No. This browser is actually Opera GX, the sponsor of our channel for like the past 6 months. They've been absolutely incredible. Opera GX is a significantly better browser than Google Chrome. It takes up way less of your PC's resources, so you get better in-game performance. Comes with a built-in VPN, built-in ad blocker, and if you download it and install it using our affiliate link linked in the description below, which is completely free, by the way, we earn $3 per person that does that to support the channel and help us make more builds, more thumbnails, more edits, all that goodness. So if you like these build videos and you want to upgrade your browser to a better one, upgrade your in-game performance, please consider checking that out. Thank you to whoever asked that, by the way. I saw it in the comments section, don't you worry. Returning to the optional use of the exotic class item for those who would like to put this on for the neutral game or who would prefer a more neutral game focused build rather than the Celestial Nighthawk boss damage build, the other armor perk that we really love on here is the Spirit of Inmost Light, where using an ability empowers the other two abilities, granting them improved energy regeneration, which is going to give us a very significant amount of uptime on all of our abilities. We'll talk specifically about what those are in just a moment, but I also want to take a closer look here at the Spirit of Verity, where you're going to see weapon final blows with a damage type matching your grenade grants a stacking grenade damage bonus and improved grenade regeneration. It's worth noting that this bonus grenade damage, the element of that grenade does not necessarily need to match the element that you are getting weapon final blows to match with, because I know a lot of you might be thinking, okay, so Spirit of Verity, I want to increase my grenade damage. That means I need to have a solar grenade and get solar weapon final blows. Not necessarily. And the reason I note that is because my favorite grenade to actually use with this build is grapple grenade. And you might be wondering, well, Mac, if you have a grapple grenade, which is strand, but a gunpowder gamble, which is solar, does that mean you can only buff one of those two things with the grenade damage buff from Spirit of Verity? No. That is not the case. If we look closely at Spirit of Verity, this basically means that weapon final blows matching the damage type of our grenade, in this situation strand, will give us a bonus stacking grenade damage boost to all of our grenades. So as long as we're getting strand weapon final blows, we'll stack up that death throws buff for increased grenade damage through Spirit of Verity, and we'll get bonus damage for our grapple melee, which is also buffed by Spirit of Verity, and we'll get bonus damage for our gunpowder gambles. So we get a little 2-in-1 deal right there. As far as the rest of the build goes, the other aspect I love using with this is Ascension, which everyone knows how this works. While you're airborne, use your air move, you go ahead and do the little helicopter, amplify yourself, which has received so many significant buffs over the past couple patches. It makes you borderline invincible because it makes it so that enemies are less accurate when they're shooting at you, so they basically can't even hit you. It turns them into stormtroopers, which is very on the nose for the Renegades expansion, I suppose. It also amplifies all of your allies as well and jolts all enemies, which is very, very nice, and gives us another 2 fragment slots, giving us 5 total fragments to work with. It's also worth noting that for our other abilities, for your melee ability, I would reckon that you have 2 different options. You either want to go with Withering Blade, which remember gives you 2 charges, which is 2 ways that you can proc the Spirit of Inmost Light through your exotic class item, which is always really nice. Or you can go with something like Threaded Spike, which severs everything on contact, cuts their damage by 40%, and allows you to catch it for a little bit of energy refund so you can have it back a little more quickly, throw it again to make more use of that Inmost Light. The reason we want to go with the Darkness melee specifically, though, is because of one of our fragments down here, the Facet of Courage, where our Arc, Solar, and Void abilities deal increased damage to targets afflicted with darkness debuffs. That is going to include, most notably, our Golden Gun. So the idea here is anytime we're using our Golden Gun or our Still Hunt Golden Gun, we are going to want to make sure that we chuck a Withering Blade at the boss, or we chuck a Threaded Spike at the boss, so that it's darkness debuffed, so that we're going to do 10% bonus damage with our big heavy hitter. And it's going to give us a 10 stat point bonus to grenade, which is going to further increase the damage of our grapple melees and our gunpowder gambles. As far as our other fragments go, I really like going the Facet of Hope. While we have an elemental buff, our class ability regenerates more quickly, so we can get more ascensions going, more procs of Inmost Light. I always love the Facet of Protection for a little bit more durability and a little bit of a bump to our melee stat. I also love using the Facet of Dawn, where powered melee hits against targets are going to make us radiant for a little bit of an increase to our Still Hunt Golden Gun form, our actual Golden Gun, and of course all of our other weapons. And then for our final fragment slot, it kind of depends what content you're playing. Generally speaking, I always like going with the Facet of Purpose, especially with the Solar Super, because it means all Orb of Power pickup is going to trigger Restoration for me. However, if you're doing activities like the Lawless Frontier, which has like the Nether style healing, where your healing is very neutered, Restoration basically does nothing. So if I'm doing something like the Lawless Frontier, which is where we're going to be testing this build today, I would actually urge you more so towards something like the Facet of Blessing, where melee final blows start health regeneration. It's significantly more noticeable in something like the Lawless Frontier. And again, you can proc that either with your actual powered melee final blows like Withering Blade or Threaded Spike, or you can proc them with your grapple melee final blows, which also count as powered melee final blows. Looking at our weapon selections, obviously we're already going Still Hunt in the energy slot, but for our top slot, as I said before, we want a strand weapon so that we can get these strand weapon final blows to match the element of our grapple strand grenade to give us the stacks of death throws for our increased grenade damage from the Spirit of Verity. Now, my 3 favorite options that currently exist right now is one of the newest blasters in All or Nothing. It's a pulse rifle that I do believe you can get from the Lawless Frontier, and I would encourage you to get a roll of something like maybe Slice would be particularly good, alongside something like Desperado, Kill Clip, or Sword Logic. You can also go with something like Tear, but any way to make enemies severed is really, really nice, especially if you go with the Withering Blade route, because because then if you sever enemies, then you can produce tangles, and then you get free grapple melee charges off of those tangles, because whenever you grapple to a tangle, it doesn't actually consume your grenade charge. A couple of upcoming weapons that I'm also really excited for with this build are going to be available through the Trials of Osiris, something like the Corundum Hammer, which is basically a strand version of Fatebringer. You can get something like Firefly Explosive Payload on it. These will all also count towards your Spirit of Verity because they are strand weapons. You can also go with something like Slice alongside Precision Instrument. You can go Slice with Elemental Honing. You can go with something like Firefly and Tear. Again, ways to strand debuff targets, these slice and tear type perks that are going to go ahead and generate tangles so that we can get free grapples, free grapple melees, which are going to be doing so much damage with our Spirit of Verity damage bonuses. They just feel really, really good. Another option that I could point you towards is also going to be available in the Trials of Osiris, something like the Immortal. Again, we see more of the same stuff like Slice, stuff like Demolitionist can be really, really good. Stuff like Target Lock, stuff like Threat Detector, Attrition Orbs. We also have Elemental Honing on this one. There's a lot of options and a lot of really good weapons. If you don't want to wait for those, or you don't want to try and get a gear tiered all or nothing quite yet, it's worth noting you can also just use old untiered gear strand weapons. As an example, today I am going to be using the Rufus's Fury with this build, which is actually an old auto rifle from the Root of Nightmares raid, crafted with Demolitionist and Adrenaline Junkie, so that anytime I get a grenade final blow, I get a 33% damage buff for this weapon, which is going to count both for my grapple melees and my gunpowder gambles. Finally, in the heavy slot, you can use absolutely whatever you want. I'm just using an eager edge sword for mobility, but throw on whatever is to your liking. As far as mods go, up in the helmet, we want a strand siphon so that we can make orbs of power whenever we get our strand primary ammo weapon multi-kills, a dynamo mod so we can get super cooldown whenever we use our ascension or our class ability near targets, which will happen quite frequently, and then either a special ammo scout or a heavy ammo scout depending on what your team needs. Down on the gloves, we're going to go with a heavy-handed so that our powered melee final blows create orbs of power. That's going to be both our grapple melee and our withering blades / threaded spikes. We're going to go with firepower so that our grenade final blows create orbs of power. That's also going to again be our grapple melee and our gunpowder gamble final blows. And then finally a grenade font so that when we're armor charged, we get a 20 bonus to our grenade stat to give us even more damage for our grapple melees and our gunpowder gambles. Down on the chest piece, concussive dampener and resistances as usual, depending on what you're fighting. Down on the boots, we're going to be going with a double solar weapon surge for the Still Hunt. It's going to give it a 17% bonus to its weapon damage in conjunction with a harmonic scavenger so that we get more solar ammo anytime we pick up special or heavy ammo bricks. This is going to keep us topped off on the Still Hunt ammo. Then finally on the class item, we're going Reaper, Time Dilation, and Powerful Attraction, the typical Hunter combo. Then as far as our stats go, we want to get our class stat as close to 100 as possible for maximum cooldown on it without going too far over 100 because we don't care about the overshield that we would theoretically get. We want our super and grenade stats to be as close to 100 as possible, and we can go a little bit over because that's going to give us bonus golden gun damage or bonus gunpowder gamble / grapple grenade damage. If you have the option, invest a little bit more in your grenade stat than you would in your super stat, especially if you're building for the neutral game. However, if you're building more so for pure boss damage, I would say load up on the super stat instead if you're going the Celestial Nighthawk route. And then for our melee stat, we don't need anything crazy. We want something around like 50, 60, somewhere in that territory is going to be more than enough. Then your health and your weapon stat, you don't really care all that much about. Care a little bit more about the weapons if you have a choice than you do about the health, but not too big of a deal right there. Now, as much as I would love to test out this build in a Grandmaster difficulty invadable instance of Lawless Frontier, I unfortunately am not actually done with the campaign on my Hunter yet, and I wanted to get this build to y'all sooner rather than later. So I'm just going to take it into a legendary difficulty campaign mission of the Renegades campaign and run it completely solo to show y'all kind of how the build works and how you want to put it to use. All right, so as you'll see, if you take a close look on the left side of my screen, when I get these strand weapon final blows, I am getting those death throw stacks. That is going to be the grenade increase thanks to the Spirit of Verity. And again, that applies to my grapple melees as well. So it's going to make my grapple melees even more potent. So as long as we're continuously getting strand weapon final blows, we are going to be chilling. And this is legendary difficulty. Don't worry, I know they don't have swords on them. I don't know why. I feel like in past legendary campaigns, they did have swords on them, but this is indeed legendary difficulty, even though you don't see swords on them for whatever reason. Then we get our gunpowder gamble, and that's going to do a ludicrous amount of damage because we have 5 stacks of death throws, because we worked our way up to the gunpowder gamble, because we're frying stuff with our strand weapon. And then as you can see, our grapple melee, while we have high stacks of death throws, does an absolutely ludicrous amount of damage. So we're just kind of spam alternating between our grapple melee with high stacks stacks of death throws and our gunpowder gamble with high stacks of death throws and just absolutely nuking everything. And then we can start using our class ability, get our melees back, use our melees to proc Inmost Light. They're also going to make us Radiant because of the Facet of Dawn. So we can throw it in there. We get another 5 seconds of Radiant. We can also proc Facet of Dawn with our grapple melee is also going to give us 5 seconds of Radiant because it counts as a powered melee. And so we have effectively infinite ability uptime, infinite Radiant uptime. We're always cycling Gunpowder Gamble. We're always cycling Grapple Grenade. There's another Gunpowder Gamble, so we'll throw it in there. Always want to shoot it out of the air as best we can. I should have actually probably grappled to that tangle right there to get a free grapple melee off. So here we got like a boss level target. The grapple melee cooks him. I don't even need my golden gun yet. I don't even need my still hunt yet. And at this point, you might be thinking, Mac, how are we getting like the still hunt stacks? What's going on, man? Well, you'll notice I'm actually almost full on the Cade's Retribution meter because all of the orbs of power that I'm making with my Siphon from the double kills of my stranded weapon, all of the orbs that I'm making from the Gunpowder Gamble final blows, all of the orbs that because of the firepower mod, all the orbs I'm making through my grapple melees because of the firepower mod and the heavy-handed mod, you're just kind of naturally, as you're going through combat, building up those stacks. So by the time you actually have a boss target, you don't even need to hit the 6 precision shots or whatever that would theoretically give you the Cade's Retribution so you can go into super mode. You basically already have it. That guy unfortunately had a blade of armor, so my latter 2 shots of Cade's Retribution did not actually do anything. And as you can see, maintaining high stacks of death throws is not that difficult. We'll throw that to reinstate Radiant, then we'll pop our golden gun. Bop, bop, bop. Missed one of my shots there, I think, but I almost one-shot him. We'll hit this right here. Hit a little precision. I'll get one more precision shot, maybe. I think I missed. That guy's a blade of armor, so I don't think I can get precision shots. Yeah, if your aim is really bad like mine, by the way, don't worry. Build still works just fine. It's also worth noting as well that with the Gunpowder Gamble, for whatever reason, the initial explosion of the Gunpowder Gamble can't actually proc the Firepower mod to make Orbs of Power. What does proc it is if these sub-munitions, those little fiery bolts that rain down everywhere, if those get a final blow, those are the ones that count as the actual technical grenade final blow and proc firepower and generate an orb of powers. And it's worth noting as well that with this build, we basically have 5 different ways to proc Inmost Light through our exotic class item, because our class ability is obviously going to proc Inmost Light, our melee is going to proc Inmost Light, our Gunpowder Gamble will proc Inmost Light, and then our Grapple Grenade will actually proc Inmost Light twice, once for the initial activation of it, and the second for the Grapple Melee, assuming that we actually hit something with the Grapple Melee. So with basically 3 different basic abilities, you have 5 ways to proc Inmost Light at all times, which means it's so easy to maintain 100% uptime on all of your basic abilities, which is the core of this build. It's basically ability spam. Wouldn't the blades also do it twice? Yeah, if you want to count both of the Withering Blade charges, then yeah, I guess technically you have 6 ways. It's also worth noting as well that with the recent changes to how the stat system works, you can actually get more than 1 shuriken charge back from using your class ability as long as you're nearby enemies. So if we look at my stasis shuriken, it's got like 30% of one of its charges. If I do that, it gives me like a full charge plus like half of another charge. So with Gambler's Dodge, utilizing your Ascension, you're just getting even more, like the amount of ability energy is stupid. There's a reason that this is probably going to be the build that I take into the dungeon on day 1 for contest mode. Bang. You can also pop Transcendence as well. Like, if this build didn't have enough stuff going on, you can also have Transcendence. Which is very easy, by the way, right? Because you're getting a ludicrous amount of darkness energy through your shurikens / your threaded spikes, through your grapple melees, through your strand primary ammo weapon, and then you're getting more than enough light energy charged up because of all of your gunpowder gambles that you're spamming. What's an alternative if you don't have Rufuses? I don't have anyone to teach me raids, which was a question asked in the live stream, twitch.tv/Mactics, by the way, where we film all of these live, and a very good question. Really, any strand primary ammo weapon will get you by just fine. Does not have to be Rufuses specifically. It doesn't have to be any of the ones that I showcased in the build guide segment of the video. You can use pretty much whatever you want. There's a lot of strand primary ammo weapons, whatever one works for you. It's really just we want a strand primary ammo weapon so that we can match our grapple grenade element so we can get our death throw stacks. Another fun fact, by the way, and I honestly do not know when this change was made, but Gunpowder Gamble no longer deals any self-damage. Another one of my favorite parts of this build as well is if you want to, and you don't have to, this is totally overkill, but like if you have a super tanky target like that, you can just rip your inventory real fast, pop on Nighthawk, bop, and then hit the Cade's Retribution on this thing, bop, and then you can just switch on back. There's no penalties for doing so unless you have like a not swap modifier on. Again, that's like so overkill. You don't have to do that. But if you're doing like raid boss DPS, it can be nice to swap as you're going into the DPS phase. Obviously, that might not work as consistently on contest mode stuff if we have more things like the not swap modifier enabled. Don't know whether or not that's going to be the case for this upcoming contest mode dungeon. You know, if you're doing a raid with the boys or something like that, you're ripping a Desert Perpetual, or you're just doing like a casual dungeon run with the boys that doesn't have the not swap modifier on, having the option to just do a click like boop, boop, throw it on, Celestial Nighthawk as you're walking into DPS phase, click everything. And look, we already have our golden gun back, by the way. Yeah, I think you get the idea. It's pretty good. So, as I said, genuinely one of the most fun and most powerful builds that exists in Renegades at the current moment. I highly recommend you give it a try. I'll have a Destiny item manager link in the description down below. One thing I do want to mention about the build before you go, though, supposedly there are a couple of bugs and discrepancies where I guess some of the things, specifically Gunpowder Gamble and Still Hunt, might not be doing their correct damage values. I am not 100% sure whether or not those bugs are true due to the fact that whenever you go and test stuff inside of the shooting range, you get different values than when if you test things in live game. So I don't really know. It might seem a little bit complicated to use as well with all the, you know, buffs that you have to manage. You got Verity going, you got Inmost Light going, you got Radiant going, you got Amplified going, you got your Grapple Grenade, you got your Gunpowder Gamble, all that goodness. There's not really a correct or incorrect order to use all the abilities or do all the combos with this build in. It's just basically load in the activity, spam all the buttons, and spamming all the buttons gives you bonus ability energy regen so that you can continue to spam all the buttons. That's basically the build. There's no wrong way to use this build. There's no way to fail at this build, which is my favorite part about it. So I hope you enjoyed this build video. Please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you did and you want to see future builds. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.